There are a lot of things that make me feel like it's all coming crashing down. I mean, you've got Joe Biden's corruption, you've got the weaponization of the DOJ, you've got the economic collapse, and then I wake up and hear all U.S. flights are grounded because the NOTAM system went down. And I'm like, I don't know what NOTAM is, but apparently nobody can fly anymore. So they restored this at around 9 a.m. So they say. I'm recording this slightly just after, so we're waiting for the update. But the interesting thing about this story is not necessarily, in my opinion, that the entire grid went down. I mean, that actually is very important. But if the grid goes back up and we can fly again, it was a minor hiccup. These things happen, right? I noticed something very interesting. A tweet put out by the FAA. You can see right now, breaking news. They have just lifted their ground order on all flights. I don't know if they have the tweet listed right here. I do have it pulled up separately. But when I was looking at the story, I noticed something. The FAA tweeted, cleared update number 2 for all stakeholders. I saw that and I went, no. Okay. I'm not going to swear. For all stakeholders. No effing ish. They say the FAA is still working to fully restore the notice to air mission system following an outage. While some functions are beginning to come back online, national airspace system operations remain limited. I do not trust these people. Do you know what stakeholder means? It's the new nomenclature. It's a new word. It's a woke terminology. Stakeholder capitalism, World Economic Forum ideological garbage. I mean, the idea itself, the way they describe it, ain't all that bad. They're basically like, businesses need to consider everyone involved in the process, not just the profit motive. And I'm like, I hear you. You know, the idea is like, if you're pumping oil out of the ground and then selling it to a dude who wants oil, are you really considering all factors? Are you considering the people who live in the area? Are you considering the animals? Are you considering the damage you may be doing? We can't just keep going that route. And you know what? I dig it. That general concept. I'm like, that's a good point. The only problem is they're liars. And they're using what sounds like a nice idea to implement their control. It isn't about you. It's not about the stakeholders. It's about them. And I have proof. Now, of course, I'm going to read for you what happened with the FAA because it's kind of crazy to hear that every single flight got grounded. Must suck to be in an airport right now. Maybe you waited a week after the holidays before going home because you were like, well, I don't want to get caught in the rush. And now you get jammed up for a night. Not the biggest deal in the world. There's another story that's completely unrelated, but related by a single word, stakeholder. And that's the musician MIA. She was recently booted from a festival because her opinions are offensive to the festival's stakeholders. And this is the important point. You may be saying, Tim, what does a musician concert have to do with the FAA? Stakeholders. They said they were booting her because it was offensive to the stakeholders, but they didn't ask a single stakeholder. They didn't ask anyone. It was them. It was those who ran the institution, the organization. They use your name. They say it's for you as they beat people over the head with a cudgel. And that's the point. When the FAA comes out and says, notice to all stakeholders, that's when they're talking to you. You're a stakeholder. Why? Because they want you to think that you're involved. But then when it comes to making administrative and executive decisions pertaining to stakeholders, it has nothing to do with you and everything to do with them, because don't forget, you will own nothing and you will be happy. And you know what? They're not wrong. Take away someone's knowledge of freedom and liberty, and they'll never imagine what it could be like because it won't exist to them. Some of these ideas, these philosophies, they were developed over a long period of time. And many of these crackpot World Economic Forum weirdos want to do away with those. You know, we're sitting here. Look, I got to be completely honest. Watching that movie Wall-E and seeing morbidly obese people carting around drinking Slurpees, and I'm like, that is not a positive future. But what's the alternative? You get someone like Michael Bloomberg saying, you shouldn't be allowed to drink large sodas, so we're going to put a tax on those sodas. Literally, he said tax the poor. Poor people make bad decisions, so let's take their money and decide for them. And there it is, my friends. It's some kind of communism. Stakeholder capitalism makes no sense. Capitalism is the free exchange, the free market. And I believe for the most part, I'm not a staunch laissez-faire capitalist, but for the most part, a decentralized system does fix itself. They want to talk about stakeholders and all the problems that are affecting our planet and how we need to consider everyone else. Okay, let's talk about horse poop in New York City. The turn of the century, 1900s, they said there was going to be too much poop, too many horses. Has anyone considered that your desire to ride a horse around in New York and transport goods is going to leave poop everywhere? So they lost their minds. And then what happened? The car got invented. And then the poop was gone. And there was no poop anywhere. No, for real. The horses be walking down New York and they'd take a dump right in the street. It's like, here's a solution. Strap a bag to the horse's butt. And then when it walks, it poops right in the bag. That's what they do now. Sometimes. You go around Chicago, you see piles of horse crap still lying around. And then I guess they just hope the rain gets rid of it. But that was the point. They said, we need to consider everyone because we can't just have piles of horse crap everywhere. So they wanted to implement these policies, but then human technology and capitalism changed the game. Humans developed a way. That's what capitalism does. Now they want to get rid of it. I think it has more to do with them wanting to control you, them wanting to create the vision of their future and wield you like a weapon in the direction they so desire, instead of letting you decide for yourself and for the decentralized structure to take its course. Okay, but we'll talk about that first. Here's the news, because to be honest, it is very crazy to hear. I woke up and it's like everyone's like, every plane is shut down. All flights across America have been grounded until at least 9 a.m., full stop. As of the recording of this video, they've announced the flights have been restored. The problem is with the notice-to-air mission system, which pilots use to access flight paths and communicate with air traffic controllers about hazards. So far, 3,500 flights have been delayed by the outage, with more delays expected throughout the day. Crazy. The system went down sometime before 6:30 a.m. on Wednesday. The cause of the failure is unclear. President Biden told reporters that he had spoken with Transport Secretary Pete Buttigieg and ordered a full investigation. Oh, that's confidence building. Apparently, they're saying it's not a cyber attack, but not like I'd believe them if that was the case. Departures from Newark Airport, New Jersey, one of the major New York City airports, and Atlanta Hartsfield-Jackson, one of the busiest in the world, are resuming, according to the FAA. Other departures from different airports are expected to resume at 9 a.m. Let me tell you why I don't trust these people, especially when they spout things like, notice to all stakeholders. Remember when AOC said she wanted to get rid of airplanes? And farting cows? That's where we're at. So when the plane stopped working, do you think I'm going to believe them that it was all just an accident? Now, what I see here is, it's possible not all things are possible. What I mean is, when we did away with the horse poop problem by inventing cars, we found a technological solution, the combustion engine, the horseless carriage. But from that came CO2 emissions. Okay, well, we need new technology then. Okay, well, now we have electric cars, really good ones. They're not completely emissionless. The vehicles themselves are, but the energy still has to be produced somewhere, which generates emissions. We can find solutions. Ian on Timcast IRL often brings up carbon capture for graphene production. I mean, look, whether you're producing graphene or not, Ian, you're a little obsessed. You can still capture carbon from the atmosphere and use it for whatever you need to use it for. I mean, trees capture it from the atmosphere. But maybe when it comes to airplanes, that could be the most efficient form of travel. Maybe we build a massive global network of maglev trains. That would be really cool. They could even theoretically be faster, depending on how you build them. Because they could, I don't know if they could be faster, but a direct line, I don't know. I'm not the expert on this, but maybe there are technological solutions. I don't want to believe there are no solutions. I believe there are, and shutting down airplanes just isn't it. If you want to talk about stakeholder capitalism, how about this? How about you just go regular capitalism and you invest in solutions? You find a way to make air travel better, more efficient. They don't do that. AOC just says, we need to build trains to Hawaii. She didn't literally say that, but she was like, we can't fly around. Take a look at this tweet from the FAA, my friends, October 28th, 2021. The FAA will host an inclusive language summit on November 10th, and we want to hear from you. Join us as we discuss changes to aviation terminology that embrace diversity and inclusion. Learn more about the event and how to submit comments here. Okay. Yeah, okay. Yo, dude, if you're hiring pilots on diversity and not meritocracy, I'm going to be a little scared to fly. But maybe that's the point. They want people to fly less. You know what we're starting to see? the expansion of private charter. I've talked about private jets quite a bit. Here's something you guys need to understand. Private jets have become particularly expensive. They used to be cheaper. Private jets used to be slightly more expensive than first class. So it's not, people don't get it. Like you assume that someone buys like a $10 million jet to fly around. That ain't it. Often some of these people will finance a jet and it's like $5,000 a month. In fact, some of these jets are from the 80s and they're still flying on them. And those can cost about $1 million. So someone finances it. They're spending $5,000 per month. Don't get me wrong, a lot of money. But if you're making $500,000 a year, like we're talking about the 1%, but we're not talking about multimillionaires. You can afford this. Not necessarily to own it because you might want to put your money elsewhere, but private charters used to be like 10 to 20K. I know. I'm not saying it's cheap. I'm saying it's not as expensive as people thought it was. You'd assume it would be way more expensive. Now they've got new companies coming out with smaller jets, the size of like a small SUV. And it's crazy. A round trip flight for 4 people comparable to first class on a private jet. Granted, it's super tiny. It's like being in an SUV. There's no bathroom. There's one pilot. It is what it is. But they are getting the cost down. I'm bringing this up because technology is improving. And that's capitalism, baby. This one company we've had an exchange with, Verijet, I'm mostly referring to, they talk about reducing emissions, making private travel comparable to the cost of first class, easier, faster, no security. But think about it. They're talking about how they want to get rid of planes, like when AOC does the Green New Deal stuff. Yo, this company is using capitalism to find a solution there. Now, you don't got to, some people were like, the woke anti-emission thing. It's like, fine, whatever, dude. If they're making it cheaper to fly private, here's what happens. You book the flight, you walk into the airport, no security. The plane is sitting right there. You walk in the jet, you take off, way faster, way more efficient, less emissions, comparable cost of first class. That's capitalism. Not this stakeholder garbage. Stakeholder garbage is like, we've decided to have 800 people on one plane and it's cheaper. Let me talk about stakeholder capitalism. Is stakeholder capitalism newspeak for economic fascism? Yes. Let me show you why. Over at advanceesg.org, ESG advocacy for everyone. You got to watch out for these evil cultists, man. This is April 26, 2021. They say in state capitalism, the government is the key stakeholder acting as a steering force in the marketplace and can intervene when it deems necessary. As such, business interests are subservient to interests of the state. Well, that's bad. In shareholder capitalism, the owners of the business are the primary stakeholders, whose principal goal is to increase business profits. Short-term profit maximization is the key driving force, and all other considerations are of lesser importance. I got to be honest, that's also bad. Stakeholder capitalism. Well, what's this? Envisions that all stakeholders, the owners, the customers, the employees, suppliers, essentially anyone who is impacted by business decisions matter equally. The key characteristic is the emphasis on improving society and increasing the well-being of everyone rather than to generate a financial return. This form of capitalism focuses on long-term value creation and ESG parameters. In this system, individuals, private businesses, and public corporations can still innovate and compete freely while also being protected and guided to ensure that the general direction of the economic development for the greater good. Well, that sounds absolutely wonderful, doesn't it? Until you stop and ask yourself the question of who is doing the guiding. Oh, it's still the state. Which brings me to our good friend MIA. I like MIA. Never been the biggest fan of MIA's music. Not bad music, don't get me wrong. It's not, this morning I'm listening to a Perfect Circle, Audio Slave, and All That Remains. Yeah, Phil was here last night. He's hanging out. Big fan. And I'm playing these like 2000s hard rock and metal music. And, MIA was, she's good. She's good. But I'm listening to Perfect Circle, man. Judith is a masterpiece. You can't change my mind. Here's what she says. Field Day London, how dare you? I'm literally an artist who has been given a medal for speaking up. Now you're going to pull my show because of your stakeholders? Your stakeholders are not happy. I point out hypocrisy in a tweet, but are happy if I support war, murder, sex, and drugs. Look at what they say. They wrote an email. When we made the offer on the 27th of October, we did so in good faith and with the belief that this would be a great collaboration for all parties. Since then, there have been some online comments by the artist, which could be viewed as quite contentious. And for a festival like Field Day that now makes continuing with this very hard, after discussing it with AEG, the consensus in light of online activity, blah, 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 blah. Here, let me get to the part where I'd like to be clear. On behalf of everyone involved on our side, there is no judgment here. Maya's politics, the detail of what she says, is really not our business. The concern, however, is that, as we know, people are ready to judge us based on our actions. And in this case, therefore, a booking may be viewed as an endorsement of our views. Blah, blah, blah. Worth noting that the majority of the festival conditions outlined in the subject were not subject to blah, 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 blah. Okay, here we go. In light of her online activity, festival stakeholders, she keeps saying that, stakeholders, because they're stakeholders. Contentious, blah, 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 blah. That's the language. Stakeholders. In light of her online activity, like what accidentally launching a missile on an innocent village or me scamming $1 billion from people or running a sex scandal? No, it was your little tweet. How naughty. Festival stakeholders want musician to be boring puppets. Well, that's where we're at, my friends. That's the game. It's all about whether or not the stakeholders agree. The interesting thing, however, is that they don't ask their quote-unquote stakeholders. It's still just the state. The difference? What they're doing is they're saying, in state capitalism, the state is the primary guiding force. In stakeholder capitalism, it's everyone. You know what they're really saying? It's a global effort. People around the world have a say. What they're really saying is it's still the state, but it's a much bigger picture. It's more like the IMF or the UN or something. So MIA gets the boot because they're deeply offended and worried about what their stakeholders might think. It's crazy, right? Spineless cowards. MIA has been speaking out and calling out the hypocrisy, as many have, and this is what we get. She tweeted, tweets are dangerous to the point I might have to get a job at Twitter soon, Elon Musk. Since when did pharmaceutical companies determine what artists you listen to? Well, that's strange. What were the tweets in question? Is it that she was questioning Big Pharma? That's right. And the stakeholders are quite mad. They can't allow that. It's in consensus. The consensus is that in light of online activity, we cannot continue the offer, I'm afraid. We have not taken the decision lightly, but must consider the wider risk to the festival and its stakeholders. And there it is. Again, did they ask? Pretty sure fans of MIA aren't going to complain all that much about her tweets. But they decided. And that's where we're heading. So it's funny. I wake up this morning and I'm looking at it and I'm like, the stories aren't seemingly related. But then I saw the tweet from the FAA and I'm like, what? The FAA, notice to all stakeholders. That's the new language, the new nomenclature. The Foundation for Economic Education, is that FEE? Is that what it is? They say, leaders of the World Economic Forum are seeking to implement a great reset of capitalism, whereby global stakeholders cooperate to achieve shared goals in the true spirit of not letting a crisis go to waste. Do you know what this really is? It's Chinese-style communism. It is. The state has a communist office in every business, guiding force, but that's state capitalism. If it's done on an international scale, now it's stakeholder capitalism. No, it's the same thing. They love what China's done. They created a system where they can use the components of capitalism to create a kind of more rapid development, but still manipulate and control it under the guise of helping you, the poor people. So where do we go from here, my friends? It's kind of scary because every day I hear people saying that they're not going to speak up. I'm like, we're losing. And there's reason to believe that we're holding out. We may see some tremendous victories, but they are shaping the culture all around us. Take your political victories. The Republicans barely won. There's some funny things happening. The U.S. is resistant to these forces, but it is being crushed slowly over time. If people refuse to speak up because they're scared of losing their jobs, then you've already lost. That's it. I was talking to a buddy of mine, and I was telling him, he was saying like, look, man, I can't lose my job. I just can't do it. And I was like, bro, you are sitting in your house as an angry mob goes door to door smashing windows, and you think that if you just shut up, they'll skip your house. They won't. Sooner or later, they'll throw a brick through your window too. And they were like, well, if I come out now, they'll come right at me. And I'm like, okay, sure enough, this is funny. They recently got hit with some kind of scandal And now they've got the woke mob all angry at him. And I was just like, okay, congratulations. You said nothing, and it still happened. Because you can't do anything about it. It's an angry mob marching through the streets, smashing windows. You need to call up your buddies and say, we need to protect our houses. Instead, what y'all are doing, I'm not saying all of you, I'm saying the people who refuse to speak are just like, close the blinds, turn the lights off, and just pray they don't come for us for now. Okay. Ain't nothing doing, man. That's your decision. I'm not gonna tell you how to live your life. I got out of the city. We got chickens. We're gonna get some goats. We're building a new headquarters. But we speak up all the time. And this Saturday, I'm gonna be in DC at Freedom Plaza skating, asserting my presence. Ain't nobody gonna make me go hide anywhere. Ain't nobody gonna tell me what I can or can't do. Don't know, don't care. People are like, but Tim, it's dangerous. I don't care. Dude, I am not going to live that way. I will not live cowering in fear. But what if some... Y'all can be worried about your families. I recognize that. I totally get it. But I'm going to go and do my thing. I know, I get it. I don't have kids. People say it all the time. You don't have kids. You don't understand. You're right. Fair point. I'm going to go out and do my thing. I'm going to go out. I'm going to go skate. And ain't nobody going to tell me otherwise. Hope to see you there. 10 a.m. Saturday, DC's Freedom Plaza. They can whine and complain, and they can push their cult garbage however they want. It's not stopping me. I'm going to live my life, and I'm going to skate. And you know what? I want a cleaner future. I want people to care about each other. But I don't want crackpot Klaus Schwab being the global dictator and his weirdo friends. That is not how we want it to happen. We want people to not want war. We want people to be responsible and good stewards of the earth. We don't want crackpot World Economic Forum Davos group people dictating it for us while lying to our faces, because they will fly in private planes, because they will have widescreen TVs, because they will eat imported Italian ice cream for breakfast, and then say, I'm allowed to have beachfront property, but you should consider the stakeholders when you try and live outside your pod. Eat your bugs. Yeah, sorry, I'm not interested in that. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all then.